I'm so excited to be here today. Let me get this set up. I think I'm live on both. Hi everyone. Okay, so I'm live on Facebook and on Instagram, and I've got like multiple screens in front of me, so bear with me. I'm no tech expert, hence why I'm a few minutes late today because this never seems to go as planned. Okay, so hello, welcome. I am so excited to be talking to you guys today. I'm talking all about food sensitivities, so and how to overcome them. Yeah, so welcome. I'm going to be covering really like what they are, why they occur, how we can get over them, etc., etc. So let me know in the comments if this is something that you personally deal with. Like, do you deal with food sensitivities? Is this something that you have been told you have before? You've maybe gotten a test and gotten the results back, and it's shown that you have multiple food sensitivities, maybe to totally random foods. If this is resonating with you, let me know in the comments below. And if you're new here, my name is Hannah, and I'm a certified holistic health coach, and I specialize in gut health. And I help women really all over the world ditch the never-ending digestive issues that they can't seem to really like get out of, even when they feel like they've tried everything and gotten multiple tests and all that stuff, and really regain their freedom without the starving. Because you don't have to go on a heavy juice cleanse or anything like that to really repair your gut. So, and ditch your digestive issues for good. So if you're new, welcome. Please come say hi in the comments. I love to hear from you guys and tell me where you're kind of tuning in from and all that jazz. Come say hi. So let's get into it, yeah? So today, the title of this is really like how to heal food sensitivities, like talking about how you can actually do it. So let me guess, right? Like you probably, people that have a lot of food sensitivities come to me and they're like, I don't know what the heck to eat anymore, right? I'm scared to eat most foods. I have no idea how my body's gonna react to them anymore. It's like one day I'm fine, one day I'm not type of deal, or it feels like you have issues eating basically everything. And then you get into this like really horrible and restrictive cycle of eating the same like 5 foods because you think these ones aren't going to upset you, so you just like stick with chicken and carrots, or you stick with like, you know, the smoothie or whatever, and you know, you're stuck kind of in that cycle for a while. And I've been there, right? You're like terrified. Like I used to be terrified to even eat an apple because I was like, this is gonna make me bloat the rest of the day. And I won't have time for that, right? So I hear you and I see you, but I want you to know that you can overcome this and you don't have to live with these food sensitivities for the rest of your life. Hi, you guys. Hi, Caitlin. Hi, Leah. Awesome. I did AIP for a long time. So Leah says she did AIP for a long time, but it was so restrictive and stressful. It is. It can be. I've worked with other women that have done that in the past. You got to be careful with it because we don't want to be setting up like the foundation to develop like orthorexia either, or like just being really hyper restrictive. So it's really about finding the balance, right? And I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. AIP can be a little rough. It can be really helpful and it can be a little rough. So I would love to know kind of like your experience with it and if it helped you. But anyway, today I'm going to be covering first and foremost signs that you have food sensitivity. So before we even dive in, like some of you may have gotten a test back and you've got like loads of them, or you feel like you have a bunch of them. Some of you may be like, how would I even know if I have a food sensitivity? So one of the signs that you have them is bloating, is acid reflux or heartburn, is diarrhea or constipation. It could be nausea or gas. It can be skin issues like hives, acne, eczema, itchy skin, things like that. It can be psychological issues like brain fog, mood swings, anxiety, fatigue. And then it can be a bunch of other things too. It can manifest in many different ways, one being joint pain, congestion. So if you tend to have a lot of congestion, that's another sign. Migraines, headaches, right? This is all a part of my personal story. I had lots of congestion, I had some eczema, I had migraines, daily migraines, all of that kind of stuff because my gut was just a disaster. So awesome. So those are kind of some signs and symptoms that you may have food sensitivities. Now let's talk about like what they even are, right? Because we've got food sensitivities, we've got intolerances, and we've got allergies. So these are all kind of different. So let's break it down. And let me know if you have any questions as I'm going. So the biggest difference between food allergies and intolerances or sensitivities is that the intolerances and sensitivities aren't like immediately life-threatening, right? Like if you have an allergy, if you're allergic to peanuts and you eat peanuts, you can go into anaphylactic shock, and that can be really dangerous. That's kind of the biggest difference. The sneaky thing with these intolerances and these sensitivities is that you'll keep eating them, not really knowing, and you're doing some, as opposed to like acute damage, right? Like I ate this, I immediately experienced this, I have a headache, or I'm in full body rash, or I'm going into anaphylactic shock. You have like a chronic buildup of something over time, right? Which to me, like I don't really know which is even worse, because the second one, of course the first one is life-threatening immediately, and the second one just like develops over time, and you can do a lot of damage with it. So that's kind of, those are kind of that's the biggest difference between the two. So if you have a food sensitivity or an allergy, your immune system identifies that as an invader, right? Keep in mind, most of the immune system is in the gut. So your body thinks it needs to protect you from this food, and it produces these antibodies to do so, which is a really good thought until we have a gut issue, yeah? And while the immune system plays a role in both the food sensitivities and the food allergies, the reaction it's gonna recruit different immune cells and antibodies that send messages to the immune system. So for allergies, you have an IgE. This is a little sciencey. We're gonna get over it soon. I'm gonna give you the details soon. But I wanted to break this down a little bit for you so you can know that there's a difference. But for allergies, you've got an IgE antibodies, and these send messages to other immune cells that then cause this allergic reaction. And then you can go into shock, right? Like that's like the allergic shock, the anaphylactic shock. And that can be fatal. Then with food sensitivities, the body actually produces IgG antibodies, and that can lead to more subtle and longer lasting effects. So that's why you may have gotten a food sensitivity test. You can get like an IgG test, right? That's how you identify all those sensitivities. Okay, so that's kind of like the difference. Then you have food intolerances, and those mainly affect the digestive system through tons of different symptoms. And these lead to like microinflammation, which once again, it builds up over time, and then you see it manifest in many different ways. So it may not be an immediate thing, it can be a chronic over time thing, but most of the diseases that really harm us are chronic, right? But we can make adjustments so we don't have to deal with them anymore. So where do these food sensitivities come from, right? Like you likely weren't born with these. Sometimes children can be born with allergies, and I'm kind of on the team, like I think we can do some work to overcome some allergies as well. Like if I see someone and they talk to me and they've got gut issues and they're like, oh, I have a really bad allergy season, like these are directly correlated because it's a sign of a gut dysfunction. But where do food sensitivities come from, right? They occur really when we have something like leaky gut. So let me break down what leaky gut is. If you follow me or you've heard me talk before, you're probably like, Hannah, I've heard this before, I don't need to hear it again. But this is like the biggest thing, right? So we don't just like wake up one day and we're sensitive to a million foods, including foods that are potentially healthy for us, like spinach, chickpeas, lentils, apples, right? All of these other things. This is a sign that we're dealing with leaky gut. So we have a gut dysfunction. So it doesn't have to be this way forever, but in most cases, after some deep gut healing, we can bring most of these foods back in and into our diet, right? Maybe not every single day, maybe bit by bit, maybe once a week, something like that. But one of my main goals when I have women that come into my programs is to get them through a thorough gut repairing process, so then they can open up and expand their plate a little bit more, because I know how hindering it can be. I mean, there was a time in my life where I felt like I could eat like 5 foods, I felt at one point like I couldn't even digest water, so like been there. So a weak gut microbiome, let's break down like the how, right? A weak gut microbiome can lead to increased inflammation and in turn a cascade of other health problems. Food sensitivities and intolerances are included in this. For example, when your gut is compromised, like when you do have leaky gut or increased gut permeability, right? That's like the more technical term for it. A lot of people just call it leaky gut. What happens is foods end up passing through the gut lining and into the bloodstream where they shouldn't be going. So we have our gut lining that is like thinner than our fingernails. It's very thin, and it's really important, right? So on one side of this gut lining, we have like our gut and our bacteria and all of this stuff, and right on the other side is called GALT, like it's GALT. It's literally where our immune system hangs out. So when there's an issue in that gut lining, I always like to use my hands so we can get a visual. So when we have a gut lining, it's comprised of tight junctions. It should be comprised of tight junctions, right? These cells like plug right into each other. Boop, 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 yeah? When we start to get leaky gut, these tight junctions start to break apart, they become a little leaky, then we have things flowing through this really thin gut lining where they shouldn't be going. This is bacterial endotoxin, right? We've got undigested proteins, we've got potential bacteria, potential parasites, all of these different things that can flow through. And this is also known as bacterial endotoxin that then leaks through this gut lining and triggers inflammation. So this is why you can start to also react to foods that may have worked for you in the past, or also are usually like healthy, whole, natural foods from the earth that most people do fine with, right? Or that you've done fine with in the past. But it's really because it's not even necessarily the food, but it's the fact that you have leaky gut, which is these tight junctions have pulled apart a little bit after all of the inflammation that's been happening after you've been eating this food that's been damaging it, which could have initially been another food, and now like you could have started with something like celiac disease, or you could have started with something eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of sugary foods, a lot of foods filled with gluten or something like that, that then could have initially triggered this, but now that we have these tight junctions that are leaky, we've got stuff flowing in, triggering this inflammation, triggering this immune system response, that are healthy foods, right? They aren't necessarily the culprit. You're not necessarily sensitive to these foods. What's happening at the root of it is that you are dealing with something like leaky gut. So this is what we really need to address. And this is why, once again, you may have gotten a food sensitivity test back, or just intuitively, you're like, I'm reacting to all of these foods, what's going on? But you may have gotten a test back and you're like, why am I sensitive to all these foods? These are all like whole, healthy foods, right? This could be it. And when we have something like leaky gut, we're usually also dealing with something like dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of the good to bad bacteria in the gut. We've got an overgrowth of some kind, or we don't have enough of those good bacteria. So it's really important that we get to the root of this and address the gut lining, address the leaky gut, address the dysbiosis, because that's what's causing all of these food sensitivities. I have literally worked with women in the past who have come to me and it feels like they can't eat anything, right? They've tried Ayurveda, they've tried traditional Chinese medicine, they've tried taking out gluten, they don't drink alcohol, they don't do this, all of these things. And then they get a food sensitivity test back and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm sensitive to all of these foods. And I'm kind of like, I don't really think you are. Let's put you on a really thorough gut repairing program and check back in afterwards. I want you to get the test again. They've gotten the test results after we've gone through this comprehensive process, and 0 food sensitivity. So I say that because I really want you to know that it's possible and you don't have to suffer with this forever. We just have to get to the root cause of that gut issue, and we have to get you on a really thorough, comprehensive gut repairing program to support the gut lining, to deal with the overgrowth of bacteria, to restore the digestive function that's so natural. But when we have an overgrowth of bacteria, or when we're eating these foods that are inflammatory constantly, it's hindering our digestion, right? Maybe we're dealing with low stomach acid, low digestive enzyme production. So there are a few different pieces of the puzzle that need to come together, not just taking out a ton of foods, right? Because if you're just taking out a ton of foods, you're still not hitting the root cause of the issue. You're like lightening the load on your body, which can be really helpful. But then you also have to weigh in that like mental, emotional issue and struggle that I know so many women have dealt with, where they're like, I can't eat anything anymore, right? So it's a balance of taking them out in like a therapeutic sense and reintroducing them back in, but having to set the groundwork for the gut, for like the foundational work for the gut to really support it, and then we bring these things back in, or else we won't make a difference, right? So an elimination diet alone, a low FODMAP diet alone, just taking out gluten. I've been getting a lot of messages recently where people are like, yeah, I took out fatty foods. I'm like, I don't think that really matters. We have to do more. So there's a system to it where we have to hit all of these different angles of the gut. Does that make sense? Let me know. So once again, address this underlying issue, the gut lining, repopulating the gut with the good bacteria, getting rid of bacterial overgrowth. I know it can kind of sound like a lot. It sure did to me at first, but it's not when you know what you're doing and you kind of can hit it from all of these angles. Good, I'm glad it's making sense. I saw a question come through too, so give me 1 second. I want to make sure that I hit everything for you guys. I've got some notes here. With that being said, also, there are other foods that are kind of naturally inflammatory, right? Like, I don't think I really need to explain this to you because a lot of my students are like very well versed in this. They've been struggling for years. They've done tons of self-research. They're not eating, lots of processed foods, but there are foods that are naturally inflammatory that we want to kind of avoid when we get past the food sensitivities as well, right? So these are things like highly processed foods, refined carbohydrates, foods that are really high in sugar, probably gluten for most people, processed soy milk, tofu, things like that. So those things we kind of want to keep out in general. That's my personal opinion, but go do what you want. And then there are other foods that but we want you to be able to open up your plate more so you can eat apples, spinach, oats, right? Like these other foods that are really in their whole natural form that you're just reacting to now. And this is also, to wrap this up and then I'll answer the questions, this is also why you may have seen on these food sensitivity tests that you've gotten back, or if you haven't gotten the testing, maybe you've just experienced it in your own body, right? But this is why you may have gotten these tests back and been like, I'm sensitive to all of these foods that I eat all the time, right? But that is, once again, it's not necessarily the foods. It's always important to rotate your foods, it is, but it's not necessarily the foods. It's that those foods you're eating day after day after day, and that gut lining it's not tight, it's not well sealed. I mean, this thing is thin, you guys. We have to really take care of it. So these foods that you're eating, they're not being digested properly and they're flowing through where they shouldn't be. So then your immune system is triggering this response, triggering this inflammatory response, which, to break that down, what that looks like or feels like is bloating, acne, rosacea, eczema, migraines, joint pain, all of these things, right? So it's not necessarily the food, but it's the fact that your gut lining can't support the food that you're eating. It's an underlying gut health issue. So I hope that makes sense. Once again, to loop around my thought, that's why you may have gotten these sensitivity tests back and it shows that you're sensitive to these foods that you most commonly eat. It's not the actual food, it's that you're eating them all the time and your immune system is triggering a response to them over and over and over again. With that being said, it's important to rotate your foods just so you don't build up these sensitivities or anything like that as well. And more plant diversity that we get in, a healthier gut. So that's always good. Different foods feed different bacteria, we've got different microorganisms, all of that good stuff. There's no way that like a 12-strain probiotic can give you all of the amazing bacteria that you need because we're made of like trillions of bacteria. So probiotics are great, don't get me wrong, but it's really important to do these other things too, because when you think about it, there's like 12 strains in a good probiotic, right? What that means is different types of good bacteria in the capsule that you'll take, which is awesome. But once again, we are made of trillions of bacteria, so like we have to get it in other ways as well. So does this make sense? What kind of questions do we have? Once again, I'm live on Facebook and Instagram, so let me see what I can find here. Does this make sense to you? Did I break it down okay? How are we feeling? Let me see if I can get some questions here. Okay. Lisa says, it helped for a while, but then the cravings got me hard and it was tough in social situations. Talking about the AIP diet. Yes, it can be. I want to make sure that you're doing these other pieces of the puzzle to get the results that you want, because AIP can be really helpful because we're taking out a lot of those inflammatory foods. But we don't want you living on AIP, right? That's like super difficult. And then it becomes difficult, not even physically, but like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, your joy factor, right? Like joy is a nutrient as well. We have to make sure that we're maintaining that. So it's a combination of these things. Let's see. Is there a link between environmental and other types of allergies with increased food sensitivities? Is there a link between environmental and other types of allergies and increased food sensitivities? I would think so, yes, because a sure tell sign of a gut issue is when you have multiple allergies. So I've had a student in the past, and she had candida, but she didn't know, and she had tons of allergies, right? Tons of allergies, couldn't walk in certain grasses, and she would say things like she just had itchy legs. She was like, oh, I've had them my whole life. I've just always had like itchy legs. That's what we call it. And I'm like, what? No, girl, there's something else going on, right? So we were dealing with, she was reacting to tons of different stuff, but we had to take care of the candida, which is a yeast overgrowth. It can be, right? So we had to deal with these underlying issues before we could get progress in her food sensitivities and in her feeling better and her having no migraines and no bloating and things like that, if that makes sense. But yes, she was reacting to environmental things because underneath it all there was a gut issue. So I'm not like coming on here and saying that you can like cure all allergies, right? Please keep it into context. I think you could there's probably a way somehow, to be completely honest. I believe that the body is like amazing and knows what it's doing. But you also tend to see a correlation between the health of a mother when she has a baby, if the baby is breastfed or not, if the baby is getting the nutrients from the mom, if the baby was born C-section or a vaginal birth. There's correlations to all of these in the health of the microbiome and the level of allergies. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. How about someone who removed their gallbladder? Yes, I had a student in the past who got their gallbladder removed. I think it's unfortunate. We both kind of came to the conclusion afterwards that I don't think she really needed to. I wish that many doctors weren't to remove organs from our bodies, but with that being said, she actually went through my online course, saw amazing results. Before, she was dealing with difficulty breathing, never feeling well, exhaustion. She would take a nap at noon every single day, and she worked a really high level job, and she was crushing it, girl boss, right? But totally struggling. Never felt well, never had energy to exercise, was dealing with bloating, dealing with stomach pain constantly. It was literally manifesting itself in breathing issues as well. She went through my program in 30 days. She felt better than she had in years. You do have to be mindful of the amount of fats that you eat, because our gallbladder produces enzymes that help us break down fats. But it's all possible. Let's see, any other questions? Yes, it was Life on AIP tough. Yeah, I know. And I also think sometimes it's necessary and sometimes it's not. I think it's a good option, but we just have to make sure we're hitting these other things, or else you're going to be on AIP for a year and be like, what is happening? Why am I not getting better? And sometimes it takes time. Some of my students feel and see big results in 3 days, and some of them take 60 days, right? It depends on how long you've been dealing with this, depends on how many food sensitivities you have. There are many pieces of this puzzle, but you will get gradually better. So healing isn't 0 to 100. There's usually lots of bumps along the road, and mentally, emotionally, physically, all the things. But you will get 0 to 20, 20 to 30. 30 to 50, okay, and then maybe we'll hang out at feeling 80% better for a period of time, and then it starts happening a bit slower, but you're at 80% as opposed to 0, so you're feeling, I can hang here, right? So it's a process. I'm not gonna lie to you and say just eat well for 3 days and it all goes away. That's unrealistic, right? Especially the women that I deal with have been having issues for years, some of them 25 years, some of them 5 years, some of them only a few months, but most of them a really long time. Have gotten all the tests, endoscopies, colonoscopies, right, which don't really show you a bacterial issue or a leaky gut issue or anything like that. So anyway, yes, now I'm getting on my soapbox. Any other last minute questions? Okay, thanks for your insight. Yes, you're so welcome. I've had lots of antibiotics lately. What's the best way to boost my gut again? Great question. So, some new information came out, new-ish, research came out and showed that a probiotic immediately after an antibiotic can actually delay the gut's ability to recover. So I used to say, make sure you're taking your probiotic, take it in between your antibiotic, all of that stuff, right? And that's actually not what I tell my students anymore. So instead of taking a probiotic immediately, this was published in Cell, I believe. There was a research, like a study done on it, and it can delay the gut's natural ability to heal itself. So like what we want to do is allow, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Increase your body's ability to heal itself, right? Like, this is where the magic is. Your body is magical. So instead of adding in the probiotic while doing it or after, I like to wait a few weeks. I would wait a few weeks, then you can bring in a probiotic. But in the meantime, make sure that you're getting lots and lots of plant foods, lots of different plant diversity. So what that could look like is the hand morning power smoothie in the morning. If you don't know what I'm talking about, hit up my Instagram page. I've got recipes. There's like, I think you get like 5 recipes for this smoothie in my free 3-day gut reset. This is really helpful. So in this smoothie, it's good for a million reasons, which could be an entire other Instagram live. But one of the reasons being, you pack in a bunch of different things in there. So in mine this morning, like I just had it, I had spinach, cauliflower, blueberries, a water, mint, ginger. So those are all different plant foods, right? That's all different diversity. And then I top it with like pumpkin seeds, cacao nibs, maybe coconut flakes. Maybe I have a milk, like a walnut milk or something like that. This is all different plant diversity. So this is the number one contributor to a healthy gut. So we want to make sure you're getting in lots of different plant diversity to feed those good bacteria, and lots of different prebiotics, and then also probiotics from probiotic-rich foods. So I wouldn't hit the supplement up, but I would eat the naturally occurring probiotics in foods, things like kimchi, sauerkraut, making sure that you're getting in lots of good healthy fats. These are all anti-inflammatory, higher in omega-3s, things like salmon, avocados, walnuts, those are going to be really great. And definitely stay away from sugar and stay away from processed carbohydrates. This is going to delay your healing for sure, because what happens when we take an antibiotic is we wipe out all the bacteria, right? Which can be really helpful when we're dealing with a serious overgrowth. But when we wipe it all out, we also wipe out the good. So if we're eating these things afterwards that are just growing the bad bacteria, like refined carbohydrates and sugars and processed oils and things like that, then we're gonna quickly develop an overgrowth of bad to good bacteria that's gonna lead to a whole host of issues. Everything that I talked about, right? Potential food sensitivities, migraines, acne, digestive issues, bloating, all of that kind of stuff. So really make sure you're getting in plant diversity. You're being intentional with your meals. You're sitting down, you're taking a moment, you're managing your stress levels, and all of that good stuff. Okay, let's see here. What other questions do we have? Hi, Catherine. You're so welcome. Is flax and chia seeds okay to consume if you have leaky gut? So I would say yes. Listen to your body. I don't think that there is... I see these as really healthy foods. They're loaded with fiber. They're loaded with that plant diversity, right? I think they're fine. But if they're triggering you in any way, then be mindful of that, So this is where a food journal comes in really handy. I'm always a little hesitant to say this to people because I think sometimes food journals can seem really restrictive, and they're like really paired and coupled with like diet culture and like counting calories, which like I am not here for, but it can be really mindful to take note of how you feel after you eat certain things. And I should have said this before, but another one of the biggest differences between sensitivities and allergies is that sensitivities, since they tend to be like build up a more chronic issue, like acne, right? You don't just like get acne after you eat something immediately, right? You don't just like boom. So it's a more chronic issue. But these things you can feel off from these things up to like 3 days later, right? So you can eat, gluten one day or whatever, and you may not feel it in your body until like 3 days later. So that's where a food journal can really come in handy, and increasing your intuition to your bodies, to yourself, really. But I see those foods as just fine. Listen to your body, but and more importantly, heal the leaky gut. That's the most important thing, right? Go through that process. If you have questions about that, if you need more guidance, send me a DM. This is what all my programs do. Well, they don't heal anything. Not a doctor, don't heal anything. So, Caitlin, do you have any advice on best times to eat throughout the day? Any thoughts on intermittent fasting? Yeah, I've been thinking of actually doing a whole other video on intermittent fasting since this has been coming up a lot. So, best time to eat throughout the day. First and foremost, listen to your body. Like, you know best, and if you feel like you have no idea, like, do a little experiment. How am I kind of feeling? Am I hungry right now? Eat when you're hungry. Like, I think so many of us are programmed into this. We wake up, we eat, we do the thing, blah, blah, blah. I actually had a past student she would wake up and she would eat oatmeal and berries and stuff like that, like, while running out the door, right before she ran out the door to her job, pre-virus. And she would have bloating and she'd be nauseous. And I was like, girlfriend, take it out, eat when you're hungry, And she was like, that adjustment alone, like, made a huge difference in her bloating that she had been dealing with for actual years. So first and foremost, listen to your body, eat when you're hungry, and intermittent fasting, for me, from a woman's perspective, with a woman's body, our hormone fluctuations are different than men. Right? We have different hormones. Our hormones are adjusting constantly. Our levels are adjusting constantly. We have 4 different phases to our cycle. Our bodies are more complex and amazing, but more complex. Intermittent fasting, in my opinion, for the woman's body, can be done maybe 2 weeks out of the 4 weeks of the month. You want to make sure that you're not doing it the week before you menstruate, and then that week that you are menstruating. It'll probably feel more natural when you're in your ovulation phase. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, send me a DM. I didn't know about this, honestly, like a few short years ago, because we're not taught these things about our bodies. But it is a stressor. So intermittent fasting is still a stressor on the body, but just like exercise, right? It can be a healthy stressor. We just want to be mindful of when we're doing it and how long we're doing it as well. It was a big part of, it helped me a lot. And to be honest, like, I had breakfast right before this call, I went live at noon. So I had breakfast at probably like 11:30 or 11:45. That's like pretty typical for me, but I'm mindful of it. If I'm menstruating and I wake up and I'm hungry, I eat, it's gonna vary for you. So I always say as well, if you're just starting out, like on any of my programs, we go by the 12-hour rule. So you'll rest your digestive system in the evening for 12 hours. So if you finished dinner at 7, you would have breakfast at 7. I like to say at least 12 hours. If that feels like a stretch for you, slowly work your way up. So many people get into this fad of intermittent fasting and they jump right into 16-hour fasts. And I'm like, no, you're gonna hurt your body. You're gonna get headaches. It's just not the way that I would approach it. So I think 12 hours is a great place to start. If you want to try 13 or 12 and a half, and then like incrementally and over a period of time, right? But I don't think there's any need to jump into 16 hours and like only drink coffee with fat in it during that time. If you know what I'm saying. But I've done it. I mean, I did that. I fell into that, and it was helpful and it wasn't. So be mindful of where you are in your cycle, and anyone with adrenal issues, with adrenal fatigue, with hyperactive adrenals, if you feel like you're really stressed out right now, most of us are with everything going on, it's probably not the best option for you. Just be mindful of it. Does it make you more anxious? Are you feeling more irritable? And the most important thing is, what are you eating when you break your fast? The hand morning power smoothie is good. Other things, if you're so hungry that then you're just shoving random things in your mouth, this is not what we want to be doing. This is what I've talked to other women, they've done this. They're like, oh yeah, well, I started fasting for 16 hours and then I would just like eat pasta and drink wine. And I'm like, this is a gut health nightmare, right? Because you also want to make sure you're getting in all the diversity and the fiber and the prebiotics and all of that. So those are kind of my thoughts. Maybe I'll do a whole other live on intermittent fasting. Let's see, how much time will it take to heal gut sensitivities? It depends. It depends. I wish I could give you one straight answer, but I can't, because it depends on it depends on your level of commitment, depends on, sometimes it depends on some genes. Genes don't write the whole story, but they do tend to play a part, right? But our genes are like the keys on the keyboard, and our lifestyle factors are the fingers that press the keys, right? So you're not destined for something just because it's in your genes, but it can play a part in how quickly you heal and other little things you have to be mindful of. So level of commitment, your genetic makeup, how long you've been suffering, how willing you are to really, really shift things in your life. So there's a few different things going on. Let's see. I've never heard about this. Thank you so much for the insight. Yeah, you're welcome, Caitlin. I'm assuming you're talking about like different levels or phases in our cycle. Yeah, I can talk more about this if you want. I'm like, also, for all my ladies that are on the call, a lot of this research that's done with all of this different stuff, is done on men and rats. It's not done on us, right? It's not done on female bodies with different hormones, with different cycle phases, with different needs, with different stress levels, with all of this stuff. So just something to keep in mind. So I'm not just listen to your body. Like you know best before any of this research. Okay, cool. Any last minute questions, y'all? Let me know. I'm gonna hop off this. I'm going for like 35 minutes. So yeah, any last minute questions, let me know. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this was helpful for you. I would love to know. Yes, I love these hearts coming through. I'm going to be going live like at least once a week for the next like month or so, answering all your questions, talking about different topics, talking about some like uncomfortable stuff too, why we don't get answers, why we should get answers, all of that kind of stuff. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM or comment on this video afterwards. I'm always here answering. I'm here for you guys, and I would love to know, if this was helpful. Stay tuned for other lives that I'm doing. And if you haven't yet signed up for my free 3-day gut reset, start there. This is a great place to start. It's totally free. It's 3 days of eating real food, no juice, no fasting, real healthy, wholesome foods that are delicious. Many people end up making these recipes far after the reset. It's a great place to start. It will not heal all of your gut issues. You cannot do that in 3 days. But it's an amazing place to start. I'm very honest though. I'm like, you don't expect to have everything healed in 3 days. But if you need a little reset, if you're after a vacation, or you're like, I don't even know what to do, I need relief now. Like I needed to feel better like 3 years ago. Start here. Okay, have you heard about NAT testing for food sensitivity? So what are your thoughts about it? Yeah, I have heard of that. I have mixed thoughts about food sensitivity testing. I think that it can be great, and I also think that you should do gut repairing work before, because you may get this test back and it says that you're sensitive to like everything, and then you'll be fearful of eating all of these foods, and you don't need to be, because it's actually your gut lining and dysbiosis, and it's not these foods. So I kind of have mixed feelings about it. I just had a client ask me about this as well, and my response to her was like, you've done a lot of this gut repairing work, so it's probably a good time to do this to see if there's any other foods that are ticking you off that we haven't like experimented with yet. And taking those out could expedite your healing. But if you're just getting started, it's not my approach to start there. I think you need to do other gut repairing work before you do that, or you're going to be fearful of these foods for like many months and potentially years to come, which is just as damaging. Catherine, you're the best. Thank you. How to deal with adrenal fatigue. Oh yes. Heal that gut, girl. Like seriously, most inflammation starts from your gut. So inflammation is wearing on your system day after day after day. Stress is wearing on your system day after day after day. Stress alone will cause gut issues. It's all connected. So really repair your gut. Go to bed. Go to bed by 10 p.m. Best practice. Lots of healthy fats. Lots of water. Lots of nature. Get off that phone. Get off Instagram. Things like that. Those are just some like things that are coming off the top of my head now, but make sure that you're eating gut supportive foods, because this is going to be, once again, the root of this issue, as opposed to taking magnesium or something, which can also be really helpful, but like we don't want to add on all of this random stuff before we like deal with this at the root. So I would start there. Will you say this to your Instagram? Yes, if I can. Sometimes Instagram like doesn't give us this option, and I'm gonna do my best. Thank you for answering the questions. You're so welcome. Yeah. Okay, cool, you guys. I'm going to hop off. And stay tuned. I'll be posting about other lives that I'll be doing. If you have any specific topics that you want me to cover, please let me know. I'll cover them happily. I'm always here to answer your questions. My DMs get pretty packed, so give me a sec to get back to you. And yeah, thanks for tuning in today. And sign up for that 3-day gut reset if you haven't already and you need a place to start. This is a great place to start. Awesome. I'm signing off. Have a great Wednesday, you guys. Much love. Let me see if I can do this gracefully. I probably can't. Okay.